They said I was a good father, but I barely knew my kids. She called me by my first name, not out of disrespect, not in anger, just casually, like I was a teacher or a neighbor or some man she had known once, long ago. We were standing in the kitchen, both reaching for the kettle, and she said it, clear as day. "Can you pass that, Alan?" My heart didn't break. It didn't shatter, it just stopped for a second. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. My own daughter didn't see me as her father anymore. She saw me as a man who lived in the same house, who paid the bills, who sat at the head of the table but hadn't really sat down with her in years. People told me I was a good father. They meant it as a compliment. I never missed a payment. I kept the lights on. I showed up to parent-teacher nights. I even clapped the loudest at dance recitals, though I barely understood what I was watching. I did all the things the world told me a good dad should do. I provided. I protected. I worked hard. I stayed. But there's a haunting kind of silence that grows between people who are technically together, but emotionally miles apart. And that silence had been growing between me and my children for years. I just didn't want to hear it. I told myself I was doing the right thing, working long hours, saying yes to overtime, climbing the ladder to make their lives easier. But in chasing what I thought they needed, I missed what they actually needed. Me, my time, my attention, my curiosity, my presence. The truth is, I didn't really know my kids. Not deeply. I knew their schedules. I knew their favorite meals, but I didn't know what scared them at night. I didn't know who broke their hearts or what made them laugh until they cried. I didn't know what songs they loved, what dreams they buried, or how often they felt misunderstood. And that's on me. This isn't a sob story. This isn't a lecture. This is one man's reckoning with the truth. Being a good father in the eyes of the world doesn't mean much if your kids feel like strangers when they hug you. I'm telling this now because I wish someone had said it to me years ago, before the distance, before the silence, before the names were replaced with titles and the warmth was replaced with routine. So if you're a father, or hope to be one, or love someone who is, lean in. Let's talk. Because it's not too late to become the dad your kids actually know. I convinced myself I was doing it for them. Every early morning commute, every late night email, every weekend spent just catching up on work instead of playing catch in the yard. I told myself it was worth it. That the best way to love my kids was to build a stable life, a house with a fence, a fridge that was always full, new shoes when there's war thin, college savings, medical insurance, a home where they never had to wonder if they'd be taken care of. And I don't regret that. Not fully. Providing is part of love. But somewhere along the line, I made the mistake of thinking it was enough. I was busy, always busy. There was always something to handle, fix, finish. I came home tired. Most nights, I'd drop my keys on the counter, give my wife a kiss on the cheek, and walk straight to my office or fall asleep on the couch. I figured the kids didn't mind. They had their mom. They had food. They were fine. But I was missing it. All of it. I missed my son's first goal at his soccer game, stuck in a meeting I couldn't reschedule. I missed my daughter's whispered fears at bedtime. I was answering emails downstairs. I missed the soft in-between moments when they wanted to show me a silly drawing, or ask about something they didn't understand, or just be held without a reason. I thought those things could wait, that there'd be more time, that when they were older, we'd bond, that they'd thank me one day for all the sacrifices I made. But kids don't count dollars. They count moments. And slowly, without realizing it, I became a man who was always around, but never with them. I was there in body, but not in heart, not in spirit. I didn't ask questions. I didn't linger long enough to really see them. And they stopped showing me. I thought I was being strong, reliable, uncheckable, but I was really just absent in a way that hurt more than leaving ever could. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. It started small, short answers at dinner, less eye contact, a subtle pull away when I went in for a hug. I figured it was normal. Teenagers are moody, right? They need space. That's what I told myself. That's what made it easier to ignore. But it wasn't just space they needed. It was me. They stopped coming to me with their problems. Stopped asking me for help with homework. My daughter used to draw me pictures every weekend. Now I couldn't remember the last time she even showed me her journal. My son, once talkative and eager, turned quiet, distracted. I'd ask how school was and get a one-word reply. Then, nothing. And when I'd come home after another long day and sit at the table, they'd already be gone in their rooms behind closed doors. And I'd think, it's just a phase. Or worse, they're ungrateful. Don't they see I'm doing this for them? My wife saw it. She tried to tell me, gently at first. They miss you, she'd say. They're growing up fast, but I brushed it off. I'm here, aren't I? What more do you want from me? The truth is, I didn't know how to face what I was losing, so I made it their fault. I told myself they were pulling away. That I hadn't changed, they had. I used my job as a shield. I'm doing my best, I'd snap. This is what fathers do. They work hard, they provide. But deep down I knew I wasn't showing up the way they needed me to. I just didn't know how to fix it, so I kept moving. Kept busy, kept silent, until the silence spoke louder than words ever could. Night, I overheard my son talking on the phone in the other room. He said something that hit me like a brick to the chest. He said, yeah. I guess I love my dad, but I don't really know him. I stood frozen in the hallway, heart racing, eyes burning, because that's the moment I realized I was a stranger to my own children. Not because I didn't care, but because I never slowed down long enough to show it. And by the time I was ready to listen, I didn't know if they still wanted to talk. Sometimes it takes something painful to shake you awake. For me, it was my daughter's high school graduation. You'd think that would be a proud moment, and it was, on the surface. The cap, the gown, the smile. I stood in the crowd, camera in hand, clapping with everyone else. But the moment she stepped up to give her speech, she was valedictorian. I felt a knot in my chest. She stood up there, poised and radiant, and began to thank the people who shaped her, her mother, her best friend, a teacher who believed in her, her grandparents. She didn't mention me. Not once. I smiled. I clapped. I took the photos. But inside, I crumbled. It wasn't bitterness. It was grief. Grief for all the stories I'd never heard. The thoughts she didn't think I'd understand. The victories she didn't think I'd care about. The fact that I had worked so hard to build a future for her, and somehow missed being part of her present. After the ceremony, I hugged her, told her how proud I was. She smiled politely, said thanks, Dad, and pulled away. It was brief, subtle, but I felt it, the distance between us wide as an ocean. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked into her room while she was out celebrating with friends. I sat on her bed, looked around, noticed things for the first time, the stack of books I'd never asked about, the guitar in the corner I didn't know she played, the photos on the wall with faces I didn't recognize. That was the moment I realized I'd been living next to my kids, not with them. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I waited up for her. When she came home, surprised to see me, I asked if we could talk. She hesitated. But then she sat. I didn't lecture. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just told her the truth. I think I messed up. I think I've been more of a paycheck than a parent. I know I missed a lot, and I can't go back. But I want to show up now, if you'll let me. We sat in silence. She looked at me, eyes tired but soft, and said, "It's okay, Dad. I just didn't think you saw me." That's all she said. And it wrecked me, because she was right. From that night on, I stopped trying to be the man who had all the answers. I started trying to be the man who asked better questions, who stayed in the room longer, who stopped checking the clock and started checking in. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't immediate, but it was real. And that was the beginning of everything I'd been missing. It's a strange feeling learning how to be a father when your children are nearly grown. You carry the title, but not the trust. You share blood, but not stories. You live under one roof, yet somehow live in different worlds. But I made a choice to stop hiding behind the excuse of too late and to start becoming the kind of man they could actually know. It started small. I made breakfast on Saturdays. Nothing fancy, just eggs, toast, and time. I'd sit at the table, phone turned face down, and simply ask, "How's your week been?" The first few times, the answers were short, polite, distracted, but I kept asking. I stopped giving advice unless they asked. That was a hard one. For years, I had been the fixer, the guy with the solutions. But I had to accept that they didn't always want answers. They wanted someone to listen, so I listened. Sometimes I didn't even understand what they were talking about, but I let them talk anyway. I asked my son to teach me how to use the music app he loved. It turned into a 2-hour playlist session where he explained the lyrics of every song like he was decoding poetry. I saw him light up in a way I hadn't in years. I asked my daughter to take me to her favorite bookstore. She didn't say yes right away, but 2 weeks later she asked if I had time. We spent an entire afternoon in silence, walking through the aisles. She picked out a book for me. I read it and told her why it moved me. These moments weren't grand. There were no fireworks, no movie-like breakthroughs, but they mattered. They were slow stitches in a torn relationship. Quiet ways of saying, "I'm here now, I see you." And slowly, they started seeing me too. Not as a tired, distracted man in a suit, but as someone who laughed at their jokes, who remembered the names of their friends, who sat in the stands and cheered even when there were only a few minutes left in the game. I became a father, not just a figure, not just a provider, or a disciplinarian, or a ghost at the dinner table, but a man who showed up not just when it was convenient, but when it counted. I began to understand that fatherhood isn't a title you earn through obligation. It's a relationship you build through presence. It's not measured by how many hours you work, but by how many moments you choose not to miss. And the thing that surprised me most, they forgave me. Not all at once, not with words, but with invitations, with jokes shared in the car, with quiet nods when I asked if they wanted to go for a walk, with "Thanks, Dad," spoken not out of habit, but out of connection. I used to think being a good father meant working hard, staying strong, and always having the answers. Now I know better. It means showing up even when you don't know what to say. It means being humble enough to admit you got it wrong. It means asking about their favorite movie and sitting through it, even if you don't understand a single scene. It means staying in the room when emotions rise and choosing closeness over control. They said I was a good father, but for a long time, that meant I did what the world expected. I kept them fed, clothed, safe. What I forgot was that children don't remember you for what you built. They remember you for where you sat, what you noticed, how you made them feel when they were afraid, confused, or trying to be seen. Now, when people ask me what kind of father I am, I don't point to my resume or my sacrifices. I tell them this: I'm the kind of father who learned the hard way, who missed too much, who carries regret, but I'm also the kind of father who came back, who chose to listen, who learned that love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. And if you're still reading this, if something inside you is stirring, let me tell you something I wish someone told me. You don't have to go back in time. You just have to go back into the room. Sit down, ask the question, make the call, say, "I want to know you." It won't fix everything, but it just might save everything that matters. And maybe one day, When your child calls you dad, they'll mean it in a way they never could before, because this time, they'll actually know you, and you'll finally know them.